now continue with our discussion on the revised corporation code. So far, we've finished already the general principles, kinds of corporation, and incorporation and organization. So tonight, we'll try to finish two or at most three topics: directors, trustees, and officers, powers of corporations, incidental powers, ultra vires doctrine, and hopefully including stockholders and members. So we'll start with directors, trustees, and officers. So as per the bar syllabus, these are the covered topics. Okay? Well, if we discuss, the management, the body that sets policies for the corporation, we have to look into these issues: who are qualified and disqualified to be directors and trustees, who could be elected, and who can elect, and in what manner, how will they elect. Now, what is meant by an independent director, since the revised corporation code emphasizes on good governance, corporate governance. Okay, and this concept plays a vital role. Independent directors protecting minority interests, and also as an indispensable requirement for corporations vested with public interest. Now, once the directors and trustees are already elected, what do we mean by term, holdover, and how are they removed? What grounds? So what happens when they are removed? What happens if there is vacancy in the board? How are they filled, okay, by the corporation? Then we'll also talk about the voting requirements, duties, liabilities, and dealings of directors, the doctrine of centralized management, the business judgment rule, the doctrine of apparent authority, and the doctrine of ratification or estoppel. Qualifications and disqualification. So under the code, okay, qualifications and disqualification are designed to ensure that individuals managing the corporation meet standards required by law, okay? Standards of integrity, competence, and accountability. Okay? These statutory provision is reinforced by jurisprudence. Now, what are the statutory provisions on qualifications of directors and trustees? We have Section 22 of the RCC. Directors must own at least one share of stock registered in their name in the corporation's books. So for stock corporations, directors must own at least one share of stock. Now for non-stock corporations, okay, the trustees must be members of the corporation. Trustees in non-stock corporations must be members of the corporation. Now, for corporations vested with public interest, what is required in Section 22 is that independent directors must be present and they must compose 20% of the board. Okay? So basically, these are the qualifications to be voted as a director or a trustee. So if we talk about qualification, you have to qualify whether the corporation is a stock corporation or a non-stock corporation, but there's a common denominator, ownership or membership. So for stock corporation, dapat maging stockholder. You must be an owner of at least one share of stock. For non-stock, must be a member. Now, the concept of an independent director is included here because this is a requirement also under Section 22, specifically on corporations vested with public interest. How about disqualification? It says here in Section 26 of the RCC, a person is disqualified if within 5 years, okay, prior to election or appointment, they were, number one, convicted by final judgment or an offense punishable by imprisonment exceeding 6 years. They found guilty of violating the code or the securities regulation code. Number 3, found administratively liable for fraudulent acts. And lastly, found guilty by a foreign court or regulatory authority for similar acts. So if you see here, what is required so that or the situation that must be present for a person to be disqualified to be a director or trustee is conviction, okay, or being found guilty of an offense or any violation of the most related laws. And this conviction or finding of guilt must have been within 5 years before the election or appointment. Take note also, we look at the enumeration, the disqualification is not only based on a crime committed or an offense committed, but also for a act where someone becomes administratively liable. So aside from criminal liability, a ground for disqualification is also administrative liability or any finding of guilt, not just here in the Philippines, but also by a foreign court for similar offenses as mentioned here. So here are some cases to look at as far as qualification and disqualifications of directors and trustees. Lim versus Moldex Land Incorporated, 2017. Supreme Court said that directors must own at least one share of stock in their name. Okay? Non-members cannot be elected as directors or officers of a corporation. That's just a reiteration of the caudal provision. Well, on the issue of corporate powers and accountability, Tom versus Rodriguez, 2016, the court ruled that corporate powers are exercised through its agents, meaning the directors or trustees, and these agents, for them to act in behalf of the corporation, must meet the qualifications set by law. Now, on the issue of independent directors, okay, anchored on Section 22, take note, this is, most probably one of the topics in the bar exam. Independent directors, the requirement of independent directors is mandatory in corporations vested with public interest, as this requirement ensures accountability and transparency on these kinds of corporation. A corporation vested with public interest. So by summary, as to the disqualification, who is a qualified director? A stockholder owning at least one share in a corporation is eligible to be elected as director. Okay? Provided, of course, he meets all the qualifications and none of the disqualifications. For non-stock corporation, basta member siya and he's not disqualified by law. What could be an example of a disqualified officer? A person convicted of fraud under a different law, not under the RCC but under the Securities Regulation Code within the last 5 years before he was nominated or elected as a director or officer. So take note of the reckoning period, 5 years before the election. Now let's talk about elections. So after knowing who could be qualified and who are disqualified to be directors or trustees, the next question is, who will vote them? When can they be voted? And how will we vote for them? How will people vote for these nominees? And lastly, after the election, what should be done, okay, to make sure that the entire process is complete, reporting. Now, the election of directors, trustees, and officers under the code is governed by specific provisions aimed at proper corporate governance. So yung nabanggit na natin kanina, qualification, it's a prerequisite before elections are conducted. Okay, also included in the discussion of elections are voting rights, quorum requirements, and reporting obligation. Under Section 23 of the Code, It provides that directors or trustees are elected by stockholders or members entitled to vote, thus answering the question, who can vote? Okay? Directors must be stockholders while trustees must be members of the corporation. About their term, how long can they serve as directors or trustees? For directors in stock corporation, their term of office is generally 1 year. Okay, 1 year. For trustees in non-stock corporation, their term is 3 years. So there's a difference in the term of a director and a trustee. Okay, voting rights. Who can vote? Stockholders may vote their shares in various ways, including cumulative voting as provided in Section 23. But for non-stock corporation, members will cast one vote per trustee. We'll see later on that there are two methods of voting. Some would even add another method, a combination of the two. On the one hand, you have straight voting, and on the other, you have cumulative voting. So for those qualified to vote, these are the two methods of voting. For straight voting, stockholders may vote the number of shares they own for each candidate for director. This means that each share entitles the stockholder to one vote per candidate. A stockholder owns 100 shares. 100 shares yung kay stockholder. And there are 5 nominees to be directors. Now, under straight voting, this stockholder with 100 shares can cast 100 votes for each of the 5 candidates, a totaling 500 votes. So, the stockholder can cast 100 votes for nominee 1, another 100 votes for nominee 2, so on and so forth, for as long as it will not exceed his number of shares. How about cumulative voting? Stockholders may cumulate their votes by multiplying the number of shares they own by the number of directors to be elected. And they can make allocations of all their votes to a single candidate. They can do that. Or they have the alternative of distributing among several candidates. So for example, the same stockholder with 100 shares, what he can do under cumulative voting is multiply his shares by the number of directors to be elected. So 100 shares times 5 directors. So 500 votes. So yung 500 votes na yan, the stockholder may allocate all of these to only one candidate. So pwede niyang i-concentrate lahat in one candidate. But he has also an alternative to distribute them among multiple candidates, as when out of the 500 votes, he gives 300 votes to candidate A and another 200 votes for candidate B. So usually cumulative voting is adopted by a corporation where stockholders want voice through the election even if their shares are not majority shares. Kasi mas may impact yung vote nila under cumulative voting. Take note also of the quorum requirement. A majority of the outstanding capital stock of or members entitled to vote must be present. An election cannot continue. It will not be valid if it does not meet the quorum requirement. For stock corporation, what is required is majority of the outstanding capital stock. So it's not dependent on the number of stockholders, but it's dependent on the stocks owned by stockholders. So even if one or two or just three are present, if they represent majority of the outstanding capital stock, then there is still quorum. However, in non-stock corporation, the members entitled or the quorum consists of majority of members, meaning each member is counted singly. So one or one member. Okay? So if there are 20 members in a non-stock corporation, majority means 11. Okay? So how will they vote? Under what mode can these people vote? It could be in person, by proxy, or through remote communication. Then after the elections, the corporation needs to comply with the reporting obligation. Meaning within 30 days after the election, the corporation must report the names, nationalities, shareholdings, and addresses of the elected directors, trustees, and officers to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Some cases, in Marasigan versus Marasigan, the meeting for the election of directors was invalidated because there is lack of quorum and proper voting requirements. So these are procedural rules. Yung quorum, the rule on quorum, is a procedural rule that is important to be complied with for the validity of the elections. Kim versus Moldex, 2017, Supreme Court emphasized that only stockholders or members can be elected as directors or trustees. If not qualified, then they are not eligible to be elected. In Salido Jr. versus Aramay 1, Metals Development Corporation 2021, court ruled on the invalidity again of a certain board resolution due to procedural lapses as there was no compliance with the quorum requirement. So while it's a procedural requirement, the need for compliance to is quorum requirement is a condition for the validity of the corporate action. Now let's elaborate further. Who can vote then? Who can vote? For stock corporations, stockholders who own shares of stocks in their name as recorded in the corporation's stock and transfer book at the time of the election can vote. So meaning, stockholders on record can vote. Well, sometimes you are a stockholder through a deed. But if that transfer was not recorded in the corporation's stock and transfer book, you are not entitled to vote. And sometimes, a stockholders enter into an agreement where someone will manage their stocks. And then this trustee becomes the stockholder on record. So yung beneficial owner ng stocks is not entitled to vote because what is required is a stockholder on record, meaning a stockholder whose name appears in the stock and transfer book of the corporation. Voting rights of stockholders. Stockholders may vote the number of shares they own for as many candidates as there are directors to be elected. As we said earlier, this is straight voting. The alternative is cumulative voting, where shares could be concentrated on one candidate or it could be distributed among multiple candidates. Now, for non-stock corporations, who can vote? Answer, members of the corporation as defined in the bylaws of the non-stock corporation. So members, what are the voting rights of the members? Members may cast as many votes as there are trustees to be elected, but cannot cast more than one vote per candidate unless otherwise provided by or in the bylaws. So for non-stock corporations, members will vote, well, basically using the straight voting method. So example, in a non-stock corporation with 3 trustees to be elected. So tatlo yung i-elect. Ilan ang pwedeng i-cast na vote ng isang member? A member can cast 1 vote for each of the 3 candidates. What is not allowed is a member will cast, for example, 2 votes in one member. Hindi pwedeng i-cumulate, okay, yung votes niya to a single candidate. Okay, when can stockholders or members vote for their directors and trustees? Okay, directors or trustees are elected during the annual stockholders or members meeting. Diyan nagkakaroon ng election. Annual stockholders or members meeting as stated in Section 23 of the RCC. Now, next question. How do stockholders and members vote for their chosen candidates? We've already mentioned about straight voting and cumulative voting, but we need to reiterate this kasi usually ito yung nakakalimutan palagi. Straight voting and cumulative voting. We already presented some examples, but we'll present more examples, detailed examples. Again, the basis of this right to vote is Section 23. And there are two methods, straight voting, cumulative voting. And these methods are designed to ensure fair representation of stockholders in the board of directors, particularly in stock corporation. Straight voting again, each stockholder casts one vote per share for each director position. Cumulative voting, a stockholder may allocate all their votes to one candidate or distribute them among multiple candidates. Straight voting, let's elaborate it. In straight voting, a stockholder votes for each director position using the number of shares they own. A stockholder owns 100 shares. That's the case. And if there are 5 director positions to be elected, then under straight voting method, the stockholder can cast 100 votes per director. So if this stockholder votes for candidate A, B, C, and D, he can give each candidate 100 votes each. Basta hindi lumampas dun sa total shares niya na 100 shares. So for each candidate, he can cast as many number of shares that he owns. How about in cumulative voting? In cumulative voting, a stockholder may concentrate all their votes on one candidate or distribute them among several candidates. But take note that the total number of votes a stockholder can cast is equal to the number of shares they own times the number of director positions. So for example, again, you have a stockholder who owns 100 shares. There are 5 directors to be elected. So ang gagawin dyan, i-multiply mo yung shares owned sa number of positions to be elected. So 100 times 5, that's 500 votes. So what can the stockholder do with his 100 votes using the cumulative method? So the stockholder may allocate all the 500 votes, concentrate all these 500 votes to a single candidate. Or he has the alternative, kung ayaw niyang i-concentrate, he can distribute the votes among all the candidates. For example, one possible scenario, 300 votes for candidate A, 100 votes for candidate B, and 100 votes for candidate C. Then we'll not give any vote to the other candidates since 500 na lahat yan. So you see the difference between straight voting and cumulative voting. To a certain extent, pag cumulative voting yung gagamitin mo, even if you have limited shares, it can affect the results of the election. Now, let's try to answer these basic questions. How are straight and cumulative voting conducted under the revised Corporation Code? Answer, in straight voting, each share is entitled to one vote per director position. In cumulative voting, a stockholder may cumulate or concentrate their votes or not concentrate, accumulate, put together all their votes by multiplying the number of shares to the number of directors to be elected, and then allocate these votes as they may see fit. So depende sa gusto nila. They may concentrate in one candidate or distribute the votes to the candidates. Analysis. Straight voting ensures proportional, So straight voting ensures proportional representation. This is done because each share is given equal weight for every director position. So proportional representation pag straight voting. But in cumulative voting, this allows minority stockholders to concentrate their votes on fewer candidates. And by, as a result, it increases their chances of electing a representative in the board. So both methods provide stockholders with mechanisms to exercise their voting rights, with cumulative voting offering greater flexibility for minority representation. So if you're asked, ano ba talaga ang key difference? Answer is, in cumulative voting, it allows greater flexibility that is favorable to the minority stockholders so that they can have minority representation in the board. Some common errors. It's wrong to believe that cumulative voting is mandatory for all corporations. You only use cumulative voting if it is required by the Articles of Incorporation or by the corporate bylaws. Otherwise, you can avail of straight voting. Another common error, confusing the total number of votes in cumulative voting with the number of shares owned. Well, in using cumulative voting, do not forget the formula. Total number of shares owned times the number of directors to be elected. Yan yung possible number of votes that you can cast. For exam strategy, questions on voting methods often involve hypothetical scenarios. Remember to calculate the total votes in cumulative voting by multiplying the number of shares by the number of director positions. Okay, take note of this. Tingnan natin kung masagutan natin to. A corporation has 3 director positions to be filled. So 3 directors to be elected. Now, stockholder X owns 50 shares, while stockholder Y owns 100 shares. Question 1. How many votes can stockholder X and stockholder Y cast under straight voting? Question number 2. How many votes can stockholder X and stockholder Y cast under cumulative voting? And how can they distribute these votes? So for question number 1, considering the facts, 3 directors to be elected, you have 2 stockholders will participate in the election, X owning 50 shares, Y owning 100 shares. Then the answer, in case of straight voting, stockholder X, okay, can vote 50 votes per director. Kasi yan naman yung number of shares. So for each director, pwede siyang mag-cast ng 50 votes. But the total number of votes that he can cast is 150 as there are 3 directors to be elected. Now, how about stockholder? So 100 votes per director. Okay, so for each director, he can cast 100 votes. The total number of votes is 300 for 3 positions. Okay, pero hindi niya pwedeng i-cumulate yan sa isang director lang because that is another method. In cumulative voting, paano kung cumulative voting yung nakalagay na method of voting under the Articles of Incorporation or in the corporate bylaws? So, cumulative voting, just remember this formula. Number of shares owned times the number of directors to be elected. So, 50 times 3, stockholder X can cast 150 votes. Kay stockholder Y, 100 shares yung sa kanya times 3, 300 votes. Now, how will they allocate this total number of votes? Sabi natin kanina, they can concentrate it on just one candidate or distribute this total number of votes to the candidates as they see fit. Directors and trustees may be voted through these modes, or rather, stockholders and members can vote under these modes. Could be through personal voting, voting by proxy, and voting through remote communication or yung tinatawag na in absentia voting. Okay. So meron na to sa revised corporation code because of modern corporate governance and for inclusivity and flexibility. So how is personal voting done? This is done when a stockholder or member physically attends the meeting and casts their vote in person. Legal basis is Section 23. Pwedeng, sabi dyan, stockholders or members may vote personally during elections, as when a stockholder attends the annual stockholders meeting and votes for a candidate for the board of directors by raising their hand or submitting a ballot in person or personal voting. Another mode is voting by proxy. Okay? So yung mga busy na stockholders, what they do usually is they authorize another person to vote on their behalf through a written proxy. Okay? Take note of that, written proxy. Legal basis in the RCC, Section 57, which allows voting by proxy provided that the proxy is in writing, signed, and submitted to the corporate secretary within a reasonable time before the meeting. So hindi pwedeng basta-basta lang na magpadala. As required by law is the proxy must be in writing, signed by the stockholder, and submitted within a reasonable time to the corporate secretary. So a stockholder, for example, who cannot attend the meeting due to a busy schedule or travel, can assign a trusted representative to vote on his behalf by signing a proxy form. And then we have this third mode, which allows for greater efficiency. Katulad po nung ginagawa natin ngayon, imbes na mag-travel pa tayo and attend physically, meetings under this mode or elections under this mode could be done in absentia or remote communication. So stockholders or members may participate and vote in meetings through electronic means. For example, video conferencing, or by submitting their votes in absentia. So Section 23 permits voting through remote communication or absentia. But take note of this. While the law permits it, there's a requirement here that the corporation must be authorized to do this remote or in absentia participation in its corporate bylaws. Dapat andun sa corporate bylaws, or that it is authorized by a majority of the board of directors through a corporate resolution. So kung hindi naka-authorize yung corporation because there is no provision in the corporate bylaws allowing voting in absentia, hindi pwede itong third mode na to. So corporations, okay, in addition, for corporations vested with public interest, this right, kakaiba to, is available even without a specific bylaw provision. This ensures, but may ganitong exception sa corporations vested with public interest. This will ensure that there is inclusivity in this kind of corporation where it is imbued with public interest. So as much as possible, all should participate in the elections of those who will compose the management of corporations vested with public interest. So I repeat, kung di nakalagay sa corporate bylaws yung voting through remote communication or in absentia, hindi pwede. Kung hindi inapprove ng majority of the directors, hindi rin pwede. Exception, the case of corporations vested with public interest. Kahit wala yan sa corporate bylaws, they can still avail of this method or mode of voting. So example, a stockholder unable to attend a meeting in person logs into a secure video conferencing platform to cast their vote or submit their vote electronically before the meeting concludes. So voting by remote communication. Now we have no jurisprudence yet directly addressing remote voting. But the principles of inclusivity and corporate suffrage, meaning the right to vote, are consistent with the case of Tan versus CICIP 2006, which emphasized the importance of stockholders' participation in corporate governance. So just like, within the setup of the Philippine government, although it's really different, ang concept kasi ng election of directors is the stockholders' way of directly governing or directly governing the corporation. Because after that, management is left to the directors and trustees. Okay, so the revised corporation code through these three modes ensures inclusivity and flexibility in corporate governance. Okay. Common errors, misunderstanding that proxies can be elected as directors or trustees, assuming remote communication is always allowed without checking the bylaws or board authorization. Hindi laging allowed ang remote communication. Bar strategy, when faced with a bar exam question on voting modes, always identify the type of corporation first, if it is stock or non-stock, and whether the bylaws or the board resolutions authorize remote voting. So, ba't kailangan natin tignan yung type of corporation? Yung methods available, yung marami, that's available to stock corporation. Let's try to answer this question. ABC Corporation is holding its annual stockholders meeting. Maria, a stockholder, is unable to attend in person. She then submits a proxy form authorizing her brother to vote on her behalf. Now, another stockholder, one, participates via video conferencing and casts his vote electronically. The bylaws of ABC Corporation allow remote communication but are silent on voting in absentia. Can Maria's brother vote on her behalf? Why or why not? Number two is one's electronic vote valid? Why or why not? First question, okay? May proxy si Maria. Pwede ba can the proxy vote in behalf of Maria? The answer is yes. Maria's brother can vote on her behalf because she submitted a valid proxy form in compliance with Section 57 of the RCC. About the validity of the electronic vote of one in number two. Is it valid? The answer is yes. One's electronic vote is valid because the bylaws of ABC Corporation authorize participation through remote communication. And for purposes of meeting the quorum under Section 23, his electronic participation is considered in determining the quorum or for purposes of quorum. Okay, quorum. Quorum requirement. A quorum is achieved when owners of the majority of the outstanding capital stock or stock corporations or majority of the members entitled to vote for non-stock corporation are present, either in person, by proxy, or through remote communication. Okay, take note of these cases. Lanuza versus Court of Appeals, 2005. Pag quorum ang pinag-usapan, Supreme Court emphasized that in stockholders meeting, dapat ma-meet yung quorum. And the quorum is based on the outstanding capital stock, which is reflected in the articles of incorporation. Tim versus Moldex, a election may be invalidated if there was no quorum. Okay, this case underscores the necessity of meeting the quorum requirements and ensuring that only qualified individuals are elected as directors or trustees. Failure to meet the quorum, election or the meeting will be invalidated. And in elections, of course, okay, kailangan ng reporting sa SEC. The results of the election must be reported to the Securities and Exchange Commission within 30 days, okay, after the election. The election of directors and trustees has a structured process for purposes of upholding corporate democracy and governance. compliance with the quorum, voting rights, as well as reporting requirements are essential to ensure the validity of the election and the legitimacy of the board. So reporting is also a requirement that may affect the validity of the election. Failure to report is a ground for invalidating the meeting or the election.